Hi everybody, welcome to the second part of my Unity tutorial series. Now we're going to continue from where we left in the first video. Currently we have a sphere and we have a cube objects. I'm going to delete these, so to delete them right click, you can choose them with a shift and right click delete. And I'm going to actually add another cube. I didn't want to use that cube because I changed its shape and rotation, etc. So I want to start with a fresh cube. Make sure your cube is located at position 0, 0, and 0. So if you haven't changed your camera's position, when you look at it, it should be there. But I'm going to make my camera also position at 0, 0, exception of Z. Z is going to be minus 10. So it's going to be placed on minus 10 on the Z axis. Right now this cube is at the center of my scene. It's at position 0, 0, 0. Okay. Now I want to be able to move my cube, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to be moving it through a script. I'm going to take user input and move this cube. To move it, as you can see, you have to change its position field of the transform component. Okay. So how do I do it? I'm going to create a new script. But before I do that, I'm going to organize my Unity project folders. So we're going to have several things. We're going to have scripts folder, and then we're going to have a prefabs folder. We're going to have a models, which is for 3D models. Actually, this tool soldier should go under the models because it's a 3D model. I mean, it's not a have to situation. It's just going to organize things, because when we have a lot of assets, a lot of scripts, things going to be all over the place, and it's just not nice. So I'm organizing it. I suggest you do the same. We're going to have some audios later, audio, and we're going to have some what else? Textures. For now, this is good enough, and if you need more, then we'll add more folders. Now, go to scripts. I'm going to add a movement C# script, and I'm going to name this player control. Okay, and I am going to drag this script and drop it on the cube. Now, also to make it easier to see what is happening in the scene, just go to game object, 3D object, and select the plane. Make sure it's at 0, 0, 0. Well, if it's at 0, 0, then maybe let's make it at position minus 0.5. So this way the cube is right on top of it, but the plane is not going through the cube. And let's make it 5, 5. You can't change, I mean, changing the Y of the scale of the cube plane won't help because it's a 2D object. And I'm going to create two materials. Yeah, another folder. Let's make it materials so our materials don't get mixed up. Materials are actually, it will help you paint objects or wrap textures on them. So right click material and material here. I'm going to call this gray, and so I'm going to choose the material. I'm going to change its color to some gray, and I'm going to drag and drop this on the floor. And my cube is here. I'm going to create some bluish material, so it's easy to see it. You know, instead of dark gray, light gray, or white, I'm going to have gray and blue. So let's say blue, and the blue is going to be, I'm going to try to keep it a little bit light. Right. Now drag this material onto the cube, and you see it automatically changes color, and lift your finger. So this is what we see right now. And maybe let's move the camera up a little to like 3. And for Unity, each unit is equivalent of a meter in the world. So if this is 3, it means it's 3 meters high. And I'm going to rotate my camera about 25 degrees, so it actually is looking at the floor. Now you could also rotate by selecting these up-down arrows, right? And you can rotate it like that, or you can just enter the value here. You can also rotate it in different angles, different axes. Now this button is for scaling objects. Camera, you can't scale camera, but you can scale the cube. If I want to make my cube bigger, I can just simply make it bigger this way. Or if I want to make it bigger on the x-axis, I can do it this way. Or I can just enter it here. But right now I want my cube to be just 1. Right? And okay, now we created a script here which is also on my cube right now, and I'm going to double click this. It's going to open up Mono Develop, or depending on which version of Unity you installed, it might have be installed with Visual Studio. In that case, it might open up Visual Studio. You can manually change that. If you want to use Mono, you can use Mono. When you go to Unity, Preferences, External Tools, Mono Develop, or you can browse and choose some different editor. You can even use some Notepad editor if you like, though I don't suggest you, because it's good that you're gonna need the some IDE where it actually auto completes. It helps with the learning. Now, when you first look at here, what you see is a start method and an update method. These come with Unity. These are built-in Unity methods. Start method is called at the beginning of every game. So when you start a game, or when you instantiate an object, you create an object within the game during the runtime. It calls the start method. So it's good for any initializations or assigning any components. Now, update method, on the other hand, by default setting, it's called 25 times a second. So anything continuous, any continuous action should go into update methods, such as rotating, moving, or scaling. Those type of things should go in the update. Now, first thing in this tutorial is that I want to actually move. I want to be able to move this cube object. So I'm going to give it some speed, right? Otherwise, it's not. If the speed is not there, it can't move. I'm going to use a float type. Okay, float, move speed, and let's say by default it's 10. By the way, you need to put this F. If you're using C#, you're using Unity, you need to put this F here. Otherwise, you're going to get a compiler, because then compiler thinks this is actually a double type instead of a float, and it causes problems. So don't forget to put your F. And now I'm going to create a different method called move method, and I want to call this move method in the update. That way, whenever this method is executed, this method will be continuously executed in the game. In the move method, I'm just going to be moving my cube. So, but in order to move the cube, I also want to get the user input. To do that, we're going to create a movement value. Now, the movement value, we're going to use the input class, which is an interface into the input systems. And I'm going to call the getAxis method, returns the value of the virtual axis identified by axis name. So there are some actually predefined axis names, such as horizontal, vertical, mouse X, mouse Y. This particular one returns the values of on the keyboard A and D buttons and left and right arrow buttons. Okay, keys, or keys, I guess, not buttons but keys. So if you're pressing A, this will return -1. If you're pressing D, it will return 1, plus 1. Same as if you're pressing left key, it's going to return -1. If you're pressing right, it's going to return +1. And if you're not pressing anything, it's going to return 0. Therefore, there's no movement if you're not pressing anything. And I'm going to multiply this with my move speed, and then time.delta time. For now, don't worry about time.delta time. It basically, what it does is, since this will be called 25 times a second, things are going to move really fast. And if you want to use an easy read value for the move speed, such as 10, then we need to multiply with some constant that lowers the value of this whole statement. Otherwise, if it's going to move so fast, you're not even going to see what's going on. Therefore, we multiply this with a constant, which is some really small value, and therefore we can actually use easy to read values such as 10, 5, 20, whatever. Now, my object will be moving, but I have to be able to change some values within my transport position based on this value that I get with the user input. Until that happens, it's not going to move. So how do I access the transport component of my object? I'm going to use a transform. Okay, so this actually refers to the transform component of the object that this script is attached to. Right now, this script is attached to the cube object. Therefore, this transform is referring to the transform component of my cube. And I'm going to be changing my transform position. Transform.position plus equal, okay, transform.forward. Now, it's the blue axis of the transform in the world space. So it's actually moving forward. And if it's a minus value, it means moving backward. So transform.forward. It's the front. It's the unit vector to the front of this transform, multiplied by movement value. So if the movement is 5, it's going to be moving 5 units at a time. Okay. And let's see how this works. Press play. Now I press forward. Actually, it moves when I press left and right values because I use the horizontal axis instead of vertical axis. So to change it other way around, I can make this vertical, and I can also I'm going to call this movement Z, right? It's giving me error right away. And then I'm gonna create another one, movement X, which is going to work on horizontal, and it's gonna move the object on the X-axis. Now instead of forward, I'm gonna here this time use right, and this one's gonna move X. So we're gonna wait. When you see this thing here, it means Unity is compiling the code. As soon as it's done, you can actually press play. So now I press forward and backward, up key, down key to move forward and backward, and left and right keys to move left and right. So that's pretty much it. And this is really basic introduction to transform. In the next video, we're gonna do some more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.